Silica column. For preparing and using a silica column, you will need the following equipment: a glass column, cotton wool, sand, silica, eluent or mobile phase in a measuring cylinder, a glass beaker, glass pipette with a rubber dropper, a spatula, test tubes, a test tube rack, the sample, a long metal rod, a small measuring cylinder with dichloromethane, a stirring rod, and an Erlenmeyer flask. Determine the amount of silica needed for the column if it isn't already known. As a rule of thumb, 20 to 40 grams of silica is needed for every 1 gram of raw product. This is dependent on how well the separation of the product and other components are on the thin layer chromatography. We are now weighing 20 grams of silica in a clean and dry beaker. Be careful with the silica dust and work as much as possible in the fume hood. Estimate the volume of silica and pour twice this volume of eluent on the silica. Stir or swirl until a slurry is formed. Position the cotton wool securely in the narrowest part of the column using the long rod. Pour some eluent into the column so that there is a layer of fluid in the column and secure the cotton wool using the long rod. Add sand into the column until the cotton wool is completely covered. Use a glass pipette and rinse the walls of the column with eluent to wash down any sand. Swirl the mixture of silica gel and eluent well and pour a small portion into the column, taking care not to disturb the sand at the bottom. Turn the tap open until the eluent runs out and the silica sinks a little faster. Take care to maintain a margin of eluent above the silica. Pour more silica eluent mixture into the column and allow it to sink, and repeat this procedure until all of the silica is into the column. Rinse the beaker with eluent and pour it into the column. Using a glass pipette, rinse the silica from the walls of the column with eluent. Allow the eluent to run through the column until it has just reached the silica. Tap gently on the column. You should see the layer of eluent above the silica form again. Tapping packs the silica into the column and eliminates any spaces or air bubbles in it. Drain the column again until the eluent is just level with the silica. Tap gently and repeat this procedure until tapping no longer produces a layer of eluent above the silica. The column is now ready for sample application. Mix the raw product with eluent or another appropriate solvent. Dichloromethane is often used, but use as little of this solvent as possible. Using a pipette, gently add the sample against the wall of the column above the silica layer. For the separation, it is crucial to apply the sample in a thin, even layer. The top of the silica column is very delicate. It is important that while adding the sample, the top layer of the silica is not disturbed. Open the tap and drain the eluent until the substrate enters the column. Rinse the wall of the glass column with eluent and let this also enter the column. All of the sample is now applied onto the column. Add more eluent, again against the wall of the glass column without disturbing the upper layer, and cover the upper layer of the column with a layer of sand. Fill the column further with eluent. The sand layer will protect the surface of the column somewhat, but still be careful when pouring. You can now start with the separation of the product. To separate the product, turn the tap open and collect the eluent in a suitable container. Test tubes are the most commonly used. Mark the tubes clearly with logical numbering. Repeat these steps until the product is eluted from the column. This can sometimes be seen because the product has a particular color, but usually thin layer chromatography, or TLC, is used to monitor the process. To find out about TLC, have a look at our instructional video. When you have collected your product in one or more tubes, you can concentrate the product. Combine the contents of the tube where the product is found in a round bottom flask and evaporate the eluent using a rotary evaporator. If you need to know how to use this piece of equipment, watch our video about rotary evaporators. When the product has been released from the column, you can clean up. First, let the column run empty. Do this by opening the tap and wait until there is no more liquid coming out. Turn the column upside down and tip the silica into a beaker or small plastic bag. If the silica doesn't come out easily, use compressed air to blow it out gently.